Welcome to Echoes of Time. Today we revisit a story not often told. When the world was shaken by the tragic events of September 11, 2001, millions mourned. Some grieved in silence, some acted in the open. But for Jack Nicholson, one of Hollywood's most iconic figures, the tragedy left a mark he carried quietly and personally. On the morning of September 11, 2001, Jack Nicholson sat alone in his Mulholland Drive home in Los Angeles. The city outside was calm, the sun just beginning to rise, but inside his living room the world seemed to collapse in real time. The television stayed on, replaying the same devastating images. Planes slicing into the Twin Towers, smoke pouring into the sky, people running through streets of ash. Nicholson didn't move for hours. Friends later said he watched with the stillness of a man in shock, barely blinking, as if by not looking away he was bearing witness to every life lost. By the end of that first day, his decisions were already made. A long-planned charity golf tournament, cancelled. Contract talks with Warner Brothers, halted. His assistant was told to withdraw him from an upcoming public appearance. For Nicholson, the moment demanded silence, not business. "You can't pretend it's business as usual, not now," he told a friend quietly that night. Over the next days, his home became a place of mourning. Friends who visited described him sitting in the same spot, in the same clothes, surrounded by untouched meals and an overflowing ashtray. One recalled that when they tried to speak, Jack simply raised his hand to silence them. He wasn't ready for words. But though Nicholson was silent in public, behind closed doors his actions were immediate. Within 72 hours, anonymous donations were sent to emergency relief groups in New York. His lawyer discreetly contacted a Manhattan firehouse to ask what was needed most. Soon, shipments of protective gear, boots, and medical supplies arrived, with no donor name attached. A retired NYPD detective later remembered, "It came from a private source on the West Coast. The only clue was a handwritten note. Thank you for being brave when the world went dark." No signature. But someone recognized the handwriting from a signed photograph in a precinct office. It was Jack. Nicholson refused interviews. He didn't release statements or appear on talk shows, or join public tributes. His silence was not detachment, it was reverence. He believed grief should not be turned into performance. Instead he chose to step back. He turned down a high-profile gala, cancelled meetings, and locked the gates of his estate. Even his usual poker group was told not to come. One friend later revealed, "Jack's not the type to cry at movies." But that week, every time they replayed the towers collapsing, he choked up. It was raw. He took it harder than people would ever guess. Part of that grief came from his bond with New York. Though he was raised in New Jersey, Nicholson often spoke of the city as if it were a living thing, tough, battered, yet unbreakable. He once called it a place that always gets up again. And seeing it brought to its knees left him shaken. Quietly he reached out. He called old crew members he had worked with during New York film shoots. One assistant remembered receiving a simple voicemail. "Just thinking of you and the city. Be safe." Nicholson owed them nothing, yet in that moment he needed to remind them they weren't forgotten. Perhaps the most powerful moment came several weeks later. At a small, private fundraiser for victims' families in Brentwood, Nicholson entered through a back door. There were no cameras, no speeches. He signed a check, handed it to the organizer, and left. When asked why he wanted no recognition, he replied, "This is between me and my conscience." In a world full of loud gestures, Jack Nicholson chose the quiet path. He grieved in silence, gave without asking credit, and carried himself with the dignity of a man who understood that some moments in history demand not fame, but humility. Jack Nicholson's silence after September 11th was not emptiness. It was a form of respect, an unspoken vow to stand with the fallen, and to let his actions, not his words, do the talking. This is Echoes of Time. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe, as we continue to bring you untold stories from history.